Yes, it is my favorite time of the week, Rank Punditry, with our good friends here at New Hampshire Journal. We just talk pure politics for political geeks. Sarah Scott is actually too smart to be one of our rank pundits, but she sometimes steps in and slums with us. Dave Carney, the rankest pundit of them all, the sage counsel for political campaigns going back to Abraham Lincoln. Mr. Carney, welcome. So glad to have you.
Glad to be here, Michael.
So, by the way, before we're done, heads up, I'm going to ask you to talk briefly about the worst campaign you ever worked on from a strategy, not from a you can't win standpoint, because I used to do what you do. And everyone has campaigns where you're just a long shot, but just one where you're like, because the old adage, I believe, Mr. Carney, in politics, good gets better and bad gets worse. Do you tend to agree with that?
Generally.
Yeah, generally speaking, there are some turnarounds, but so I want to definitely ask about that. So heads up on that. Sarah Scott, you are the newly branded expert on data centers in New Hampshire because AFP, where you work, Americans for Prosperity in New Hampshire, they had an excellent roundtable, by the way, on the topic. And I'm going to ask you about how people who are pro-market should deal with an issue that turns into this kind of populist, everybody hates them, NIMBY kind of issue. But let's start with the big picture. Based on your work, traveling around the state, Sarah Scott, and based on your work, Dave Carney, as a campaign pro, what would you say the general standing of the two parties is right now? You've seen the poll numbers. In fact, the most recent Emerson poll, double-digit generic ballot lead for Democrats. Sarah Scott, is that the sense you're getting here in New Hampshire?
I think it depends on the candidate. One thing I have noticed is that if you look at the Republican Party in general, people might be a little bit more unfavorable towards that, but especially if you throw in Trump. However, when you start looking at the US Senate race and you start throwing out John Sununu's name, that all goes away. So I think generally people have a fairly unfavorable viewpoint of federal politics, of Donald Trump, and what they see as this national Republican Party, but they have a totally different perspective of the New Hampshire Granite State Republicans, that the brands are just totally different.
Carney, you look at the generic ballot and you look at the voter intensity. I think Fox News had Democrats 11 points higher in voter intensity, and you want to keep Republican consultants out of tall buildings with windows that open. Is it that bad, in your opinion?
I think it was very bad. And I'm not sure why, but God is clearly leans Republican anyway. These wingnuts who are running around the country,
Right.
doing away with the presidency, doing away with the Senate,
Right.
having the French Revolution assembly running the
Right.
courts, is that somehow the U.S. Senate is a product of Jim Crow laws,
Right.
which is cray. We don't need borders, and we don't
Right.
need jail, we don't need police. Those kinds of things, normal people, the people in the middle, the people who actually decide elections everywhere in America except Hawaii and Idaho, they are not going to put up with this, and they can't help themselves.
Right.
I mean, the coverage of politics is not what's going on in New Hampshire.
Right.
I mean, yeah, Kelly Ayotte gets on, that campaign gets on TV.
Right.
When they mock, the opiate lobbyist. And Sununu and Pappas get on 30 seconds a week.
Sure.
And they have ads. But that's the real action is what's going on in Michigan and Wisconsin, and Minnesota, and some of these other states, which just highlights the fact that the Democrats are hugely, skewing to the left, and not just being progressive, they're being radical. The idea, like nobody in New Hampshire, other than the 20% that are crazy, batshit liberal, think we should do away with police. No one believes that, or that we should do away with jails, or we should have no borders. So there is the sun is rising, and it gets better every day as they get more crazy.
But Sarah Scott, do you think that those conversations that are happening, and obviously it's cable news, if you turn on cable news, they're always talking about Mayor Mondami in New York, and they're talking right now about that U.S. Senate race in Michigan. And I actually do believe that if El Sayed, the very progressive, anti-American, pro-Hamas guy, becomes a nominee, I could see that maybe being a thing. But the answer I get from Democrats is, look, you can cover all that you want. We got a big platter of heaping helping him from Donald Trump every day, that nothing that anyone does in American politics has the impact of Donald Trump. What do you think?
I think it's true that nothing has the impact of Donald Trump in some ways, but the Democrats are losing on this socialism argument a
Mhm.
lot. I don't think the party overall realizes just how much of their population and demographics
Mhm.
are going towards this ultra progressive, way outside of the norm. Like, talk about pushing Overton's window.
Right.
When you look at just how much of the Democratic Party now considers themselves to be socialist,
Mhm.
it's significantly higher than it's ever been. I think I saw recently like 66% of Democrats are ashamed to be American. That is not resonating at all
Right.
with the general public. I think, Dave mentioned some other states. I think it helps us to have all of the issues that have gone on in Maine, for example,
Right.
right
That's a good
next door
point.
to us. People talk about what happens across the
Yeah.
country, but in Maine, that feels local to us.
Mhm.
And I think when people see what has gone on there and they see
Mhm.
the quality of the candidates, they go, this is insane. Like, these are not the regular old school Democrats that I used to
Mhm.
support.
And
So I
yet,
think Trump's a problem, but the Democrats, socialism is a bigger issue for
yeah,
them.
and one of the arguments that Republicans are making is, look, anti-Trump hatred has maxed out. It's hit its ceiling. It is 100% of what it's going to be, and it's going to stay that all the way to election day. Every day that the Republicans get a little more energy from these crazies and from these debates, that just helps narrow the gap. But Dave Carney, it's been repeatedly noted that New Hampshire doesn't have progressive Democratic candidates who win anything in the primaries here. They're not particularly competitive. Is that going to insulate Democrats like, say, Chris Pappas, who wants to be U.S. Senator, or whoever wins the nomination in the first congressional district, from that kind of guilt by crazy association?
Well, I have two things to say about that. One, not if I have anything to do with it. And two, there are more crazy progressives in the state house than we want to admit.
Mhm.
And just to point a fact to prove this, Chris Pappas, the paragon of
Right.
virtue, voted present
Yep.
on a bill to screw Israel
Mhm.
or support Israel. I mean, and the Democrats in the left were 100% against it, and people in the middle on the right were 100% for it. And he had the courage to vote present. I mean, clearly, his opponent, who I can't pronounce her name.
Right.
In fact, I'd like a law that only people whose names I can pronounce can be on the ballot, but I'm not going to get my way on that. She is putting pressure on him, and I think one of the reasons he is spending so much of his money
Mhm.
right now is to improve his primary performance. But she's not going to let him get away with it. He's taken, $600,000 or $700,000 of APAC, which is, I guess, nuclear reactive aids tainted money, and they're not going to let him forget it. And they're holding his feet to the fire, and he is responding.
So let me step in on behalf of Dr. Karishma Manzoor, who we are big fans of because she's been here on the podcast. We had a great conversation about actual policy. It's something that I wish the Chris Pappases and Jean Shaheens and Maggie Goodlanders would do, because we didn't agree, but it wasn't like a fight. It was a great guy. It was a Castro's in Bedford afternoon fight conversation, Dave Carney. It was great. And I if you had said to me 3 weeks ago she was going to put any pressure on Chris Sununu, I would have laughed. I'd have said, Chris Pappas. I'd have laughed. But here's what I'm confronted with. Number one, the present vote, very good point. And number two, Sarah Scott, while we're recording this, the Democratic National Committee is meeting to vote on whether or not they're going to strip New Hampshire from the first in the nation primary for the second cycle in a row. They are going to vote to strip it. It's dead. Where the hell is Chris Pappas? Why are you not? I mean, this is like, and Carney, tell me if I'm wrong. It's rare in politics. You get like I get to punch and I don't get punched back issue. The DNC's not going to punch back. I mean, seriously, he could chain himself to the hotel wherever they're meeting and to not let them in. And they would not say anything because they don't, that doesn't help them. So it's a free shot to say, I'm fighting for New Hampshire. I'm bold. I'm brave. I've got big heart. I'm here. And Sarah Scott, he's nowhere. And I think Carney may be onto something, that he knows that there's a group of voters who think New Hampshire is too white. White people are bad. it shouldn't be here. The polls show that the New Hampshire Democrats, a plurality, don't think we should have the first in the nation primary. So is it possible that even Chris Pappas, Sarah Scott, is being nudged to the, if not the left, I want to hide the fact that I'm in the center kind of campaign?
I think if you look at his campaign so far, like you talk about chaining himself to the outside of the building or
Right.
whatever, that'd be bold. We haven't seen bold from his campaign. So that's just totally outside the scope of how he's run. He's run a very middle of the road, not controversial, not skewing one way or the other.
Mhm.
And I think he's just trying to appeal to that middle of the road voter who sees the antics and the extreme views of a lot of the left and thinking, well, if I just maintain this normal, even-keeled campaign, people will look at me as the regular guy. Because I
Right.
think a lot of times people see Trump and they go, I got to get away from that type of personality as much as I possibly can. But then on the other side, you look at like an AOC and they say, oh, I don't want to be like the AOC either. And so his only option then is this like middle of the road, boring
Right.
campaign where nobody is excited at all.
Okay, hang on there because I want to get back to Carney in a second, but I want to follow up with you first, Sarah Scott. One of the arguments for the most powerful force in New Hampshire politics, which is boring Democrat. If you can be a boring Democrat, you are just so. The argument is that lets you keep the Democrats and the progressives and all those activists, but also lets you keep the business community. And so you look at Jean Shaheen, when you talk to people who are on the right who've donated to her, they say, look, I don't, she votes on that other stuff, but she takes care of us and she's not, anti-business. And if I have a problem, and I think that's the door that Chris Pappas is trying to keep open is, hey, money people, hey, industry, hey, business. You deal with the business side of New Hampshire all the time at AFP and with people. Do you think Pappas can pick that same lock, or is he going to have a challenge of keeping those I don't care about politics, I just care about my bottom line voters on board?
I think it depends on the year and how the voters are feeling. Because you
Okay,
see, like a Carol Shea Porter kind
right.
of came out of nowhere, came in with a much more progressive viewpoint.
Hmm.
Voters were not interested in middle of the road that year.
It's true.
And I think right now a lot of Democrats are really pissed off. And so I don't know that this is going to be the year to run a campaign that's middle of the road. They are mad and they want somebody that's going to go out there and fight for them. And so far, we haven't seen that candidate for the Democrats here.
Yeah, Dave Carney, the DC's a knife fight, and Chris Pappas showed up with an ice cream scoop, has gotten a lot of reaction. And my question to you is, do you think that that's the path for a Johnny Sununu to pull an upset victory, is to make it not about partisan or person, but just simply, seriously, if you are in a major battle for something, say, oh, I don't know, like the first in the nation primary, Chris Pappas just isn't going to fight. And Johnny Sununu, even if you do think he's kind of a stiff or he's a little too corporate or establishment, he's not a wimp. He's not going to get pushed around. Is that a path forward, or is it just going to be pure partisanship in November?
Well, first of all, I am not going to comment on Chris Pappas and what restraints and hotels in DC. I just on there. Number two is Jean Shaheen would be nothing without working for Gary Hart in the president's first in the nation primary. Had she not taken on that, I think she was just a stay-at-home mom at the time, but I may be wrong on that. But her whole career was based on her ability to work for Gary Hart and do very, very well in New Hampshire. He may have actually won, I can't remember, but he did much better than anybody expected. And she went
Right.
on the national campaign for a little bit until Gary Hart's issues came up and he retired.
He had issues? I don't remember that. I
But
always thought of him as a yachtsman.
I don't think this was going to be a partisan race. I mean, I'm sure Pappas would love to be a partisan
Sure.
race. But the fact that the Sununu is the least partisan guy on our side of the aisle in terms of working together across aisle, working with them, working on a lot of the efforts that John McCain did with it in the Senate, they're just not partisan, and so he will use that. But I don't see there being that's going to be the pathway for Sununu. It's going to be on results and what's good for New Hampshire. And the fact is, I've seen research and I've viewed focus groups in New Hampshire where nobody, not a single person, can name a single accomplishment that Chris Pappas has done in his term, like a specific accomplishment in his service to New Hampshire.
Wow.
Everybody can mention chicken wings and chicken tenders. So, excuse me, chicken tenders.
Chicken tenders.
So,
Don't forget the mudslides too.
That's true.
no one mentioned much, but they did mention chicken fingers, but no accomplishment. And I think that is going to be, what's going to, collapse him. He is going to have to creep to the left before September. And we've already seen that. And then he's going to have to explain what he's done for New Hampshire.
By the way, while you were talking, I checked the AI Google machine. Gary Hart, 37%, Walter Mondale, 28% in the 1984 New Hampshire Democratic primary. Big win. You were correct, Dave Carney. Hey, can we move into the governor's race? Because I had a fascinating incident. We're doing these new, like the poly market. Everyone loves the poly markets. We're doing the guru market where I get my merry band of 25 or so political gurus to bet, how they would bet. And I had people putting $100 bets on Kelly Ayotte. What the heck? I'm sorry. I mean, look, do I think she's probably going to win? Do I think she's in good shape? Yeah, but with Trump at the top of the ticket and a blue wave, there is no such thing, Sarah Scott, as a Republican who's a $100 bet in the year 2026, particularly in New England. Am I missing something here?
I think it's if you just look at the race, there's really not much of a race there.
Right.
So if there was a real opponent, maybe Kelly would actually have to campaign on that. Right now, she's getting a free pass, essentially.
Right.
Like nobody is mentioning her race at all. There's basically no campaign infrastructure going on because they don't need to have it right now. That's definitely one of the most boring races that I think we're going to see in New Hampshire.
I was very excited to see the inflatable rat at the State House with the Cindy Warmington opioid thing on it. But I'm sorry, a $100 bet is Maggie Goodlander. That's a $100 bet. Her race is over. She's second CD. It doesn't matter. I love Lily Tang Williams. She's great, but the world is the way it is. Ayanna Pressley in Massachusetts running for re-election. That's a $100 bet. I'm sorry, Dave Carney. A wave can definitely take Kelly Ayotte out, not because she's good or bad, but just because it's a wave.
Well, I would say for the House and Senate candidates in the legislature, that's true. But, Kelly is well resourced and she's done a good job and she's well liked. And she's running against, literally, they could have gone to the phone book, which we don't have any. They could have Googled, give me a name of a person who's voted in New Hampshire and come up with a stronger candidate
right.
on the Democratic side than who they have. She lost the primary to a person who lost the general election in a blowout. She has a terrible record, and she's not going to raise any money, and she's not very personable, and she can't speak publicly. What asset you look at a candidate and say, "Ooh, she can't do any of these things, but this is it." What is the magic sauce that made her, the nominee? She's the only one stupid enough to step up. And it doesn't help her business, down the road. Mm-hmm. And she's not going to make it. And Kelly is run, the state's people like how the state's going compared to other states. It's going really great. And, she's out there out and about. She's not Chris Sununu, who's out, tapping maple trees every week. But she is out there and she's working hard and she, has a excellent relationship with small businesses. She doesn't just stay in Manchester and Concord. She's all over the state. And, and first of all, it was not real money. Second of all, if she loses, we're all going to lose. So it doesn't really matter. But, we'll be out of business.
Right. Well, I know, but I will just say, I think you're right that Kelly Ayotte has the highest peak on this mountain as the wave heads over, but that wave could still wash over everybody. It's happened in the past, like 2010, et cetera. Sarah Scott, what amazes me about Cindy Warmington is, once again, another big fat softball issue. The DNC is trying to steal New Hampshire's primary. Why is she not at the State House with, a guy from the tourist industry and a woman who owns a restaurant all saying, look what you're doing. It's free shot. And they're not taking it. I want to wrap up with the first CD because I think it's going to test the question, can Donald Trump's endorsement alone win a Republican primary in New Hampshire. There's some people who are arguing that his endorsement doesn't matter that much. Anthony DiLorenzo obviously has some strengths. Most obvious that he can self-fund. Holly Noveletsky ran before, came up short. Trump decided to endorse DiLorenzo. The first mailer went out. One side of the mailer is nothing but Donald Trump endorsed me. Sarah Scott, is that the race in the first CD Republican primary?
It might be the race, but I don't think it's because of Trump's endorsement.
Oh, okay.
I think that his endorsement does carry some weight these days, but we've seen his candidates lose in other parts of the country before. It's not uncommon to see his endorsement not have that intended impact. You look at like the US Senate race, it's not going to be the Trump endorsement that gets Sununu across the line over Brown. It has a place, but I think really, yes, DiLorenzo will probably come out of the primary as the winner. I think a lot of people expect that now. But I think that's really more so the fact that he has run a more effective campaign. He seems to actually be one of the candidates that's taking feedback and learning. He's somebody that started out as total newbie, had no idea how to run his campaign, and I've actually seen his campaign improve. A lot of times those campaigns start and they never really go anywhere.
Right.
They never figure out how to actually campaign here. He's actually taken the feedback from people and seems to be applying it to his run.
Dave Carney, is a Trump endorsement enough?
Just the endorsement, no. But anybody who would say that the Trump endorsement is not that big a deal,
right,
should stop going to Massachusetts and buying the gun. It is very important. And now a candidate who doesn't have anything going for them, it doesn't have the resources, isn't campaigning, it's less effective. But if you run a real campaign and you add the Trump endorsement to it, it can make difference. The question is what his opponent does and how much she spends and she has a good TV ad up right now. But, people just don't watch TV like they used to. And, it's just not the end all be all. You have to have a full campaign, unfortunately includes mail and texting and digital and campaigning. And we'll see, but it is not a done deal, but it certainly is, you can ask anybody, would you rather have Trump's endorsement or not for a primary?
Right.
The answer is 100% yes.
Okay. So we're at a time
in a lot of states, but it's if you want to be, you can't win the general if you're not, don't win the primary.
We're out of time. Very, very quickly. The Democrats in the first congressional district, people are trying to make fights about APAC funding and liberal and blah, blah, blah. Is this race going to come down to Shaheen, yes or no, Sarah Scott?
I would say yes. Short answer, yes, without going too much into it. I've been surprised before, but the name has been around for so long that I think at the end of the day, when voters go into the polls, if they don't have a strong feeling one way or another, they're just going to go Shaheen.
Dave Carney.
I think the Bernie wing of the party and the crazy people on the left of him are going to give her a run for the money. What turned out to be a coronation is going to be a dogfight. And I think you'd have to give her, Shaheen, a little edge. But I would not sleep on Sullivan. And I think the snipping from the others in that race on the Shaheen is, running a boring race in a primary like this is probably not the key to success. And this all puts pressure on Pappas. And I think ultimately we are going to see people, come out as much more unrealistic, crazy, progressive than they would have wanted to, or they actually are. They're just going to be forced to do that. And I think Shaheen just can't. She can't talk. She's incompetent. She doesn't know the issues. What the hell has she been doing with it? Mother's been there for 100 years. What doesn't listen to her mother, talk. And I just think she is, didn't expect this, and now she has this. And I think it's going to be a race.
Hey, I'm like the W.C. Fields of this deal. Any woman who can get a six-figure no-show job from Dean Kamen, thanks to her mom's position, is okay by me. She knows how to do something right. Dave Carney, it's always great to have you on the show. Sarah Scott, my apologies for exposing you to Dave Carney, and thanks to everybody for listening to the New Hampshire Journal podcast. We really appreciate it. Thanks a lot, guys. Seriously.
Bye-bye.
Bye.